Hello, thank you very much for this invitation to be part of the Learning Planet Festival 2021. I'm Sean Slade, Senior Director at ASCD. For those who don't know ASCD, we're a global education nonprofit based in the Washington, DC area. We have about 115,000 members in about 128 countries. And we're focused on not only effective pedagogy and educational leadership, but also a whole child approach to education, ensuring that each child is healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. And that's what I want to talk to you today about as part of this little video. So when we talk about or ask the question about main challenges or what our organization addresses, I want to focus on the area of my work, which is a whole child approach to education. Now, this focus from ASCD, and we've been a leading voice and advocate for it in the US and globally for over a dozen years now, came out of a commission that we hosted back in 2007. And we released a publication called The Learning Compact Redefined, a call to action, which summarizes what this commission came up with. And the commission was posed a question about how do we want to reinvent or reimagine education? Now, this was 2007, and 2007, for those who know it, in the US, was in the middle of the No Child Left Behind years, when the focus was very much around academics only and high-stake testing. And the commission believed then, as we do now, that schools should be there to prepare more than just the cognitive, but the social, the emotional, the physical, the mental, the civic areas of the child and the student, so that they're prepared not only for schooling and learning, but they're prepared for life beyond the education systems. We actually came up, this was last year, 2020, we released a new version of this Learning Compact called the Learning Compact Renewed, which was a recommitment to what we wrote in 2007, but we wanted to also put it into a more of a current context. And even though this was written in 2019, much of what we wrote in it actually applied more to 2020. The focus of the Learning Compact Renewed was really to remind people and remind students themselves to see themselves as part of the bigger world, not only as part of their community or part of their state or region or country, but part of the world that they live in. And then that they're not only part of that world, but also to be agents of change and change makers of that world also. When we talk about something that we're proud of, and I'm proud of personally as well, is back in November of 2019, we launched a whole child network of schools. Now, this is a network that provides the surveys, the tools, the framework for schools, not only to start a whole child approach to education, but it provides the same tools, frameworks, and platforms for them to grow and build as they progress along their whole child journey. And what's been really amazing since we launched this in November was that we have almost 2,000 signups, 348 school districts, every state and every territory in the US, almost another 500 additional schools, 23 universities, 22 of our own affiliates, and spread across 57 countries. We are hoping in 2021 that this continues and this becomes a network that can share and learn from each other, whether they be in the US or whether they be anywhere else in the world. It certainly seems to have caught the imagination and the focus of many schools and districts and countries around the world. But there is an obstacle that we're still tackling that we were tackling back in 2007. And it's this ongoing debate around the purpose of schools and the purpose of education. Should it be focused only on academics, content delivery, or content acquisition, or should they be focused more, as we believe, on a holistic development? This image, many of you may recognize, it doesn't apply to 2020 and the pandemic. It actually came out in 2014 and was coined and developed by Pasi Sahlberg, the Finnish educator, who was also one of our board members at the time. So the global education reform movement refers to the spread that started in the US of these high-stake accountability systems, focus on annual yearly progress, but measured only in terms of academics, and also a very narrow form of academics. So what we're trying to do with our whole child network is actually try and have a new global education reform movement, but one that focuses more on a learner-centric, human-centric focus on education, a more humane focus on education, one which is holistic and child-centric, a whole child approach to education. And we're starting to see that as more and more people utilize our resources, and also more and more people sign up for our whole child network. Now, an effective example of collaboration in addressing a complex issue is we actually did a whole child network pilot study from 2012 to 2015, where we had 10 schools across the US and one in Guam, and we're actually able to track and see how they were utilizing the framework and the resources. And what became obvious through this was that the framework was providing guidance and clarity, not only for what they were currently doing, but also for what they were doing and how in other areas, and how that was fitting back under that umbrella of a whole child approach. What was also evident in this pilot study was the ability of these schools and stakeholders to share not only issues, but to illuminate solutions. And that these solutions were not just coming from neighboring schools with other neighboring schools, and they weren't even coming from an urban school liaising with an urban school, but you were finding schools around the country in different settings providing different examples about what could be successful. And so this way of getting common clarity, but also the ability to network and share, was really emblematic of the whole child network successes in this pilot study. And so when we focus on some of the key things that we would like people to look at around collective problem solving, we're going to hark back to some of the things I've already mentioned. But one of the key ones also is I'm a big believer in mindset. So if you change somebody's mindset in why they're doing something and what the purpose is, you will subsequently get change in their actions. So really trying to get that common goal around what's the purpose of education, either at a national level or even down to a school and classroom level, to have those discussions. But at the same time, to try and have those discussions across a network where you're sharing and learning from each other. And one really beneficial thing coming out of 2020 has been the ability that we have to not only share expertise, but share expertise with groups that maybe wouldn't be able to travel to conferences. So we're getting a lot more divergent voices, a lot more divergent solutions that we can all link into. I'm going to end up with a quote here that comes from the Learning Compact Renewed as well, because I think is very apt at this time. It's not too late to seek a better world. And I think everything that we start to do from this point onwards, we should be seeking to seek a better world. And what's been really reassuring is that whether it's been via the Learning Planet work or the Global Leaders, Education Leaders Partnership, or even the OECD 2030 Future of Education and Skills work that I'm involved in, there seems to be a common groundswell of direction and key elements, things around student agency, items and discussions around learning ecosystems, local control, empowering teachers, but ultimately this call for a focus on individual and collective well-being. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this interesting. And if you have questions or want more information, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.